Hey everyone, welcome to Tuesday night's class, Tuesday, March 24th, 2020. So in this video, I'm going to explain the entire class as well as the assignment that you're going to be doing tonight, as well as I'm going to read the story to you. What you can do is if you can pause the video when it comes time to do the assignment, or you can just watch the whole video and then do the assignment after. Totally up to you. Okay? So because this is online, you can complete the assignment whenever it's convenient for you. You do not need to wait until Tuesday night at your scheduled time to complete this. All right? So tonight's story, we're going to read from our book, page 109, 109, and it's the story on the astronomer. After I read it, I would recommend that you would read the story individually. You're then going to see the instructions for the assignment, and I also have an example of a completed assignment just so you can look at it before you start. Once you're done, we're going to ask that you submit your completed assignment to me, and you can do that in a few different ways. You can submit it through a Google Doc that you share with me. You could also submit it by emailing your assignment to me. And the third way is you can actually write this in your notebook, and then when you're all done, you could take a picture of it, and then you could just send that to me as well. Okay, so just one of those three ways would show me that you were able to complete the assignment. If you can't do the whole assignment and you only did some of it, then just send me whatever you have done. Okay, I guess homework would really be if you weren't able to finish it, then finish the assignment. And also, I'm going to show you tonight on this video, we have lots of online resources that will help improve your English and your math skills. Okay? And what you can always do if you're looking for more things to help with your English, you could always do the assignments from last week. Last week we read about Ron McNair, who was an astronaut, and we also read about Sol Aramendi, who was a photographer, who was an artist. So you could always do the same assignment and also submit the assignment to me anyway. And if you have any questions, I'll be available during class time. This week we are not going to use Google Hangout. We will just use Google Voice. And if you have any questions, you could either email me or you could just contact me through Google Voice, and that way I'll be able to respond to you. Okay? So let me explain the assignments to you. So actually, this is just a list of the online resources that's also going to be posted on Google Classroom. And I'm also going to email you all these. That way, if you don't know how to use Google Classroom, you can just check your email. So here we have a website for vocabulary. The next two provide ways for you to journey to different places, online field trip, or looking at this museum. Different museum options. It's also a math website. And also, some of you have already used Rosetta Stone to improve your reading and speaking and listening skills. So here's the link right here. But you would need your library card number to actually log in. Or you could use your Google login to log in to be able to use Rosetta Stone. So these are just resources that are available to you anytime you want, all during the week. Okay? So this is the weekly assignment that is very similar to what we have been doing, but I tried to make it a little bit easier. So each week I'm going to ask you to watch the video of me reading the story, and then I'm going to ask you to read the story individually on your own, either aloud or silently, although I would recommend that you do it aloud so you can hear yourself pronounce the words for fluency. And these are the three choices of how you can provide that assignment to me once you're done. There are 4 parts of the assignment. Part 1 is you're going to read the story and choose 10 words that you're not sure what they mean. Look them up and then use each word in a sentence. Okay? I'm sorry, you're going to write the definition. Second one is you're then going to complete a sentence for each word. Underline the word in the sentence. Part 3, you're going to respond to this question. What is the main idea of the story? Not all the details, but is there a lesson to be learned? What's the story about? What's the central idea of the story? That's part 3. And then the last part is create 3 questions that you would like to ask the person the story is about, because each story is about one person. So, oops, didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that. Here is an example for you. Okay, so I put my name at the top. This is the story that we read last Tuesday in class. This is part 1. So I took these words from the story: folks, counter, burly, jail, librarian, reluctantly, institute, PhD, possibility, norms. So I chose 10 words. I then looked up the definitions of the words. Some words have more than one definition. Again, this is going to become like our vocabulary, except you're going to choose 10 words that you're not familiar with. Part 2 is you're going to use these words in a sentence. So these are the vocab words. I underline the words in the sentence. Again, this is from the story last week. So you have to take that word and be able to use it. Try and be creative. Try and broaden your vocabulary. And then part 3 is what's the main idea? The main idea of the Ron McNair story is to overcome challenges that life puts in your way and to set big goals so that regular people can achieve extraordinary things. Okay, because Ron definitely was an underdog, had a lot of challenges, and really didn't let anything get in his way, and nothing stopped him. The last part 4, it says create 2 questions. If you can create 3, 4, that's great, but at least 2. I provided 3. Number 1, why did this should say, hold on a second. This should say, why did he feel so strongly about taking the book out of the library? That was within the story. That was the first one. As if I was asking him the question. Number 2, describe your experience attending MIT. That's the school that Ron McNair attended. And number 3, what was it like being an astronaut? That was his occupation after he graduated school. He ended up becoming an astronaut. So this is the finished product that we're looking for. Something like this. If you can type it, that's great. So this is exactly what I'm looking for. The 4 parts. Here's the example. And that's the assignment. Okay, so all this will be posted so you'll be able to actually see this. Okay? Great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start reading the story to you. Okay, it's a long story, so I'm just going to read it through. John Hine, 56, talks with his uncle Herman Hine, 83, a street corner astronomer. Uncle Herman, what did you think you were going to be when you grew up? Well, I wanted to be a scientist, but I had learning disabilities. I have a bad memory for lists of words. I couldn't remember rules of English grammar or spelling lists and vocabulary lists. I just wasn't a good learner. But when I was in the 8th grade, my science teacher, Miss Wicker, drew the Big Dipper on the blackboard one day and said, "Go find it tonight." So I went out and found it in that night and thought it was totally beautiful. I got hooked on astronomy from that very moment. My mother used to say, "You can spell Andromeda, but you can't spell anything they want you to in school." What's wrong here? But stuff I really wanted to learn for myself, I could concentrate real well and learn a whole lot. No learning disabilities there. So at the age of 13 or 14, I started getting books out of the library and did a lot of reading on astronomy. Eventually, around age 15, I leaned on my father to get me a telescope, and I've just been with it ever since. Astronomy. It's just me. Some people like trees, some people like birds. For me, it was always stars. It's just a part of my nature, in my genome, so to speak. You inspired the family to become stargazers. Growing up, I don't recall we ever had a telescope, but I remember you giving us maps of the constellations. They were these glow-in-the-dark charts, and we would kind of take them outside and hold them up in the sky and try to match up the constellations. Well, I've always had what I call an education bone, and what you just described is an example of it. I got a degree in elementary education in general science, but I decided I didn't want to teach in a classroom because of my learning disabilities. I couldn't remember kids' names. I couldn't even get organized enough to write them down. And so I went into various kinds of jobs, lab tech, sales, and so forth and so on. And each time I'd start a new job, I'd say, I'm going to stay with it. I'm going to get benefits and vacation and retirement and raises. But 3 years later, I wouldn't be able to stand it anymore. And I had to get out of there and get another job. I had so many jobs, I can't even make a list of them all, but it would be a very long list. And then, one beautiful night in November 1987, the moon was up, Jupiter was up, and I had nothing on my schedule. And so I decided, heck, I'm going to take my telescope out on the street and invite people to look at the stars. And as I was walking out the door, I said, oh, I'll take a tip hat with me too and see what happens. I set up the telescope in Fells Point, and I had people looking at the moon and Jupiter. I think that first night I made $10. Then I went back the next night and made $40. And I moved the hat a little closer. And I said, well, if I can make money at this, maybe I can do it full time. And that's really how I started as a street corner telescopist. I became very serious about it. I went out every possible night till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes, and set up the telescope, even in cold weather. Sometimes I'd have to recruit a passerby to take my wrench and unscrew the bolts on the telescope when I wanted to go home because my fingers were too stiff. When I set up, I have a sign on the front of the telescope that says, tonight, Saturn and its rings. Have a look. That's my trademark. Have a look. Then, as people are passing by, I'll say, have a look, folks. The moon, an awesome view through my telescope. Or, have a look, folks. Tonight, the rings of Saturn, a chance of a lifetime. You've said that when you started, there were people who thought what they were seeing was not real. Can you explain that? So at this point, I'm going to stop, and I read about half the story, and I'm going to ask you to now pause the video or stop the video and go back and read what I read to you, as well as I'd like you to finish the story. Okay? I'd like you to be able to finish the story. Okay? So if you have any questions, I will be available during class time on Google Voice, and I wish you well with tonight's lesson.